Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. It's a pretty good bet that if you embark on reading the Gospel of Matthew, that you start at verse 18 of the first chapter. At best, you might back up to verse 16 to begin. Wherever you start, you most likely skip the first part, which is a list of names as Matthew traces the genealogy of Jesus all the way down from Abraham. A list of names isn't something we are very interested in, and so most of us simply skip over it and begin where Joseph and Mary appear. However, Matthew's genealogy has some very important things to say about how Jesus descended from the line of David, which Scripture says he was supposed to do, so it establishes Jesus' credentials to be the Messiah on our human side. But, and this is really important, as you go through the genealogy, there are 4 women mentioned, not counting Mary, who is a 5th. Actually, that's astounding. This was a patriarchal society, and one would never think women were to be mentioned. So why are they included? There are a few women who are mentioned that we do know well. We have Mary, the mother of Jesus, Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, Mary Magdalene, and the sisters of Lazarus, Martha and Mary. Beyond these, there are 4 others mentioned by name, and those are who I want us to consider this week. I'm calling it Gospel Women. For today, however, let's look at those 4 women who are mentioned in Matthew's genealogy, and I'll try to summarize their Bible stories. The first one mentioned is Tamar, and her soap opera story is found in Genesis 38. I need to remind you that in those days, if a man was married and then died, the requirement in that day was that the man's brother married his widow. In that way, the man's brother raised up children for his dead brother. Well, one of Jacob's sons, Judah, had married a Canaanite woman and had sons. One of those sons married Tamar and later died. But Judah did not give Tamar to one of his other sons to fulfill the requirement. Tamar was left unfulfilled. So taking matters into her own hands, Tamar dressed as a prostitute and went to a crossroads where she knew her father-in-law, Judah, would pass by. Sure enough, he did, and sure enough, he went into the prostitute on the corner, never realizing that it was his daughter-in-law. Later, when Tamar showed up pregnant, they were ready to stone her. But when she revealed that Judah was the father, he said, "She is more righteous than I, because I didn't follow through by giving her to my other son." This is a woman in the line of Jesus. Another woman in the line of Jesus is Rahab. As the Hebrew people were ready to enter the Promised Land, Joshua sent some spies into Jericho. They found a local prostitute in the city who had hid and protected them. This was Rahab, and her reward was that she survived the destruction of Jericho and eventually married. Another woman mentioned in Matthew's genealogy is Ruth. Ruth, you may remember, was from Moab, and she returned to Israel with her mother-in-law, Naomi, and eventually married Boaz. It turned out she was the great-grandmother of King David. The 4th woman mentioned in this genealogy isn't called by her name. She is listed this way. And David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah. Now we know her name is Bathsheba, and we know how David committed adultery with her and had Uriah killed to cover it up. The way she is listed as Uriah's wife and not by her name brings the whole sordid affair to mind. It's not swept under the rug. Instead, it's put out there and emphasized for all to see. And these women are in the line of Jesus. So what does this mean? Well, there are numbers of books written about all of this, but I'll share just a few of many points. One thing all this means is that the human ancestry of Jesus is full of humans. Weak, frail, fallible humans who need Jesus to come just as much as anyone else. These aren't made up, excessively holy people. They are people just like you and me. Jesus came from God, but also from us. We are connected to Jesus, even the worst of us. Probably one of the most significant points is that as far as we can tell, all four of these women were Gentiles. Judah had married a Canaanite woman, and likely in Tamar his son did too. Both Rahab and Ruth are clearly not of Israeli birth. Uriah was a Hittite, and so most likely his wife Bathsheba was too. This is truly important. In the early church, a huge debate raged about whether Jesus had come only for Jews or whether the gospel message was to be offered to outsiders as well. The mention of these four women in the line of Jesus points out that Jesus was already part of everyone, so he came for everyone. These foreigners were part of Jesus' ancestry, so his descendants as children of God could include the whole world, not just Jews alone. These Gentile foremothers of the Messiah opened the door for the gospel message to be spread to all the world. There's one more significant thing. According to Jewish law, no Gentile was to be accepted into membership as part of Israel. And yet all four of these women were. They were welcomed in compassion, just as in compassion Jesus welcomes all the world. The laws were broken to receive them, giving us the assurance that Jesus does whatever needs to be done to welcome us as well. Matthew includes four women in his genealogy, and they provide important, powerful messages of inclusion and grace. Don't skip these verses. The women have something important and meaningful to say. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.